Welcome to the Gals Guide to the Galaxy podcast, where a group of gals gather for you one cool thing around our topic of the month. Is it ancient history? Is it breaking news? Is it safe for work? Well, that's up to each gal. All we know is that...
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
Welcome back. I'm Debbie, and I'm joined by Leah, Katie, and Bonnie, talking about our one cool First Lady. Katie already talked about Michelle Obama, Leah talked about Florence Harding, and Bonnie talked about Edith Wilson. But before we dive back in, let's get to know something random about our gal pals. So, my question is, if you were First Lady, what would your platform be? And we have total silence.
And a hush fell over the crowd. Because my first brain went to, oh, crap. My first brain, by the way. Alcohol's a thing. My first brain, oh, crap. I'm First Lady? That sucks.
Right? My causes get me out of this?
I know, right? I want my cause to be like, don't give a shit about what I'm wearing. Like, can that be a cause? Like, don't criticize my outfit? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I'll go with that. Because there are days I care about my outfit, but there are many a days like I do not. Comfort is number one in my outfit choice. I wear dresses a lot, not for pretty, for comfort. Shit's gotta air out, okay? All right, I don't like pants. There's an area.
Will you bring back bra burning?
No, because I kind of need them because the girls.
Yeah, they need support.
The girls have. I know. If they could be less. I know. I wish I could, but unfortunately, my girls need the supported areas.
Yeah. What about we'll normalize bralettes? Have you all experienced the bralette?
I still need to.
It's like I'm not really a sports bra. I'm not really a daytime bra. I'm a bralette.
I need to get to there.
But
I haven't.
Yeah,
the boob
you gotta
catchers
go.
The
boob
the
catchers.
shirts.
You get like a mono boob.
If they caught, that would work. But I need fishnets. Like actual nets to hold it up.
Right, you know? Exactly. Yeah, no, I need super supportive
I'm wearing one
little
now.
bracing. See? There you go.
Everyone look at Katie's boobs.
Your boobs look amazing.
Yes,
I mean, they're not amazing, but they're not flopping left and right. They're
this is true.
Yeah.
They're center stage.
They're centered. They're center stage right now.
There's
You
somewhat
can run.
area.
You can run an emergency without knocking yourself out.
Katie
never run.
Katie and I do not run.
Yeah, no.
We only run when chased, and we're never chased.
If I were in an emergency, somebody would think I attempted to wear undergarments, and that's it.
We're going to pull a Carrie Fisher. She was strangled to death by her own bra.
Yeah.
That is pretty much what would happen if I ran, basically, is what would happen.
Oh, First Lady platforms.
My platform
Bring it back home,
would
buddy.
be to freaking pass the ERA.
Ah, good one.
Yes.
That actually has a point.
The Equal Rights Amendment.
Yes, pass
Equal
that thing.
rights to everybody. Equal pay.
Mm-hmm.
It would be the uber feminist platform.
Yeah.
Equality with rainbows.
Yes. I'd vote for you.
Yeah.
Brilliance. Katie, what was yours be? Mine is seriously don't chastise my outfit.
Fashion.
Right? Because Nancy Reagan had the Just Say No campaign.
Yeah, that was stupid.
It was, but I remember it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. It's I knew what to say when
you.
kids were like, hey, would you like to try these drugs? And I'm like, but I've heard so many songs about cocaine and how amazing it is. They didn't have cocaine in Rockford, Michigan.
No, but not.
You would think they don't, but I've met a lot of adult people that say they've done cocaine, and I'm like, where?
Right.
Never in my life have I seen cocaine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like a mythical thing.
That's a New
Normal
York
people don't
City
see that.
thing.
That's in movies.
Right.
Where? But anyway.
But you digress. And
I
apparently
do.
are...
Just go walk around and be like, hey, you got any cocaine?
Anybody got any cocaine?
You got cocaine?
You're just not asking the right people, Katie.
I should ask everyone. That will not backfire.
Hi, my name is Katie. Do you have cocaine?
That could be your campaign.
That's my platform.
Give Katie cocaine.
Right. I
No.
don't know that would be very successful. Actually.
Not a great idea. No.
I want to kind of add to the equality
Yes.
of Bonnie's because I think that is amazing. and I know Bonnie means everybody, but one thing that keeps coming into my media feed, because I don't actually learn smart people thing, I have a media feed, is about how we're legalizing marijuana as a drug, but there's still so many people in prison for it. So I want to say prison reform would be my thing, because I think prison is stupid, and I think it's super fucking racist and fucked up.
Yes, exactly.
So prison reform.
Yes.
I got
Change
solitary
what
confinement.
Nixon.
That is
that's
fucked
horrible.
up. All of the
Yeah.
psychological studies about how damaging that is.
Yeah.
Are you
levels.
reforming prisoners or are you making them worse?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, we need to figure out if we're putting people in prison to punish them or to make them better.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Rehabilitation, and then privatizing all of that shit. It's just a monster.
Apparently, California just passed a law where privatized prisons are banned.
Good.
They started
About time.
privatizing the ICE facilities too.
Nice.
It's
Yeah.
like great.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully that goes
It's
more
just-
widespread.
It's so hard to think about a platform because there's so much that's so
There's a
fucked
lot,
up.
yeah.
That's a good one,
yeah.
There is.
Mhm.
Gosh.
Debbie, what would be yours?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think, and this is going to get like intensely political, but I'm trying not
Do
to
it.
be.
No, just
Um,
do it.
But mine would be child life.
Gotcha.
In so many people that are anti-abortion, or I mean, not anti-abortion, say they're pro-life. In
Right.
truth, they're pro-birth.
Right.
Because as soon as the baby is born, they're like,
Then they don't care.
I don't care.
Right.
So, let's get health care for children.
Yeah.
Regardless
Education.
of their parents. The tools they need to actually succeed in life.
Yeah.
So they don't, grow up and not succeed in life. And we're like, oh, see, you're fucked up. And it's
So they get a good start
so they get a good
at
start.
life. Yeah.
And if you truly don't want abortion,
right.
let's work on better alternatives.
Absolutely.
Let's provide free birth control and provide.
Yep.
Let's ease up the adoption requirements.
Right.
Let-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
fix
let's
foster
gay
care.
couples and
Have
happy
paid
people-
maternity from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
government.
because we're the only westernized culture that does not have paid maternity leave.
Right. Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
It is absolutely ridiculous.
So that would be my platform.
I like
That's
it.
an amazing one.
100%. I like it. Who is your one cool first lady?
My one cool first lady, she's the only one to have been the hostess of the only president that never got married. He was a lifelong bachelor. Her name is Harriet Rebecca Lane.
Gotcha.
Later, Harriet Rebecca Lane Johnston, because she did eventually get married, but not until after her uncle. It was her uncle, and not until he was out of the White House. She was actually known as America's first lady because
we didn't use the term until.
they didn't use the term. There is some anecdotal. There is some anecdotal information that perhaps they used it for Dolly Madison because she was acting as hostess for Thomas Jefferson after his wife died. But hers was the first time it was used in print.
Oh, okay.
In a
Gotcha.
newspaper in 1860, they called her, they said, the Lady of the White House, and by courtesy, the First Lady of the land. So that's the first time it was ever in print that they were actually called the First Lady.
So remember, Martha Washington was Lady Washington.
Yes.
is what they called her. So,
Yeah.
Nice.
So Harriet Rebecca Lane had a life she was an amazing woman. She had a life that was kind of defined by death in a lot of ways.
It is always weird when that happens, but
yeah.
sometimes that strengthens you. Hardcore. Yeah.
She was born in 1930. She was the sixth of 7 siblings. She had 5 brothers and a sister, but 3 of them died before the age of 5.
Oh.
So that by the time her mother died when she was 9, there were only 4 of them left.
Right.
And the brothers were older, so they were kind of on their own, but her and her sister were kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So her uncle Edward Buchanan put her in this boarding school that she hated. They were run by these 2 women that were so, you must be a perfect little woman and watch your weight so you can't put sugar in your tea. And I mean, it was just really insane.
Right.
So when her father died a year later, now she's an orphan at age 10.
Oh no.
She's like, enough of this. And she requested that her Uncle James be her guardian.
Oh, okay.
So they, when Dad was gone and not listening to Uncle Edward anymore, she's like, nah, give me a better one.
Ah.
So James Buchanan always referred to her as my adopted daughter.
Gotcha. Oh, very sweet.
So he changed her to another school. He put her in Charleston, Virginia, where her sister was attending.
Mm-hmm.
And that put her closer to him.
Yeah.
It also meant he could pull her out of school during the social season,
Ah.
so they could hang out together, and so she could meet people, and
so he didn't have to be sociable necessarily.
well, he was because
he
he's
liked
very
being
much
sociable.
a politician.
Okay, gotcha.
So, but he used her as a hostess even at a young age.
Yeah.
I mean, he was Secretary of the State when she was about 15.
Gotcha.
And she was hostessing parties even then.
Oh, nice.
And there's a lovely picture on the First Lady's website that shows her with President Polk and his wife and Dolly Madison and her uncle, and she's 15 years old.
Nice.
And she's like hanging out with the bigwigs, so it was very cool.
So holding her up. We shall put it in the show notes.
So, but there's a fun story of her during that time. James Buchanan was hosting a party, and he wanted to show her off. He's like, you got to meet my adopted daughter because she's awesome. So he goes looking for her. He can't find her. All of a sudden, he looks out the window, and he's mad.
Oh, no.
So he disappears. A little bit later, she comes in. She's all dressed and everything, but she looks out of breath. Her face is all red and flushed and everything.
Yeah.
So there was kind of this question. So afterwards, she sits down with her uncle and another woman, and he's like, okay, what were you doing? Because he had looked out the window, and she's like pushing a wheelbarrow. And he said, and she said, well, I was taking wood to old Black Tabitha because she didn't have any wood.
Oh.
Just some random person that she was taking care of, and that's the kind of person she was.
Why did he get so mad?
Because he didn't know that was the story. He didn't find that out till later. But he's like, all he sees is, his daughter that's supposed to be, socialite at the party, and she's out there
lugging wood,
hanging around with a wheelbarrow.
Well, like you do.
Yeah. So, when she was 16, she had been raised Presbyterian. But when she was 16 and she was finished with the other school, she looked for the best school around, and it was the Georgetown Visitation Convent, which was a Catholic school.
Right. Okay.
And that was, you just didn't do that back in those days.
You didn't change religions.
You didn't change, and you especially didn't hang out with the Catholics if you were Protestant. That just wasn't done.
There's been a couple of battles.
Yeah. But it was the best school. And they even asked her, are you going to convert to the Catholics? She said, I honestly don't know. I don't know enough about their religion to know.
That's a fair
She didn't,
sentiment.
but, she just was very open-minded. She did go to that school. She graduated with honors in 1849, and she did really well there.
Nice.
She did not become a Catholic.
Ah.
She actually eventually was baptized Episcopalian as an adult, but in later years.
Okay.
So about the time she graduated from school, well, a few years after that, her uncle became the Minister of the Court of St. James.
All right.
Which is actually the ambassador to England.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, I don't know if I should take her. I don't know, I don't know if I should take the position, because what do I do with Harriet? Harriet, by this time, she's 22 years old.
She can fend for herself, kind of.
But not back in those days. You didn't leave an unmarried woman.
True. She didn't have any rights.
Yeah, and he was very protective of her. He read all her mail.
Gotcha.
Before she did, and a lot of times she didn't get her mail. She finally made a deal with somebody to surreptitiously switch, get the letters to her later. But when the president suggested that he needed a hostess, he's like, if you're going over there, you're going to need someone to help you hostess these parties and everything.
Right.
Maybe we can suggest a few mature widows that might help out.
We can set you up on a bachelor situation with some red roses.
Nope, I got the perfect hostess. So he took Harriet with her.
Ah.
So it turned out to be the highlight of her life. She loved it.
Yeah.
They loved her. Queen Victoria was, just enamored with her. She called her my dear Miss Lane.
Oh,
she and her uncle dined with Queen Victoria and Prince Albert fairly regularly.
Was Prince Albert in the camp? I'm sorry.
He was not.
Just can't stop myself.
At some point, they all were.
Okay, cool.
But because that's what you do. But sorry, I'm sorry.
Is that a cremation joke?
No. No, that's a toilet joke.
Oh,
Toilet.
okay.
Eventually,
that's much better.
Eventually, they have to go to the crapper.
Sorry. Again, showing my age.
You're
That was a thing back then. Actually, Queen Victoria gave her the title of honorary ambassadress.
Oh,
So,
cute.
which they had never done.
Oh.
They'd always been just the wife of whoever. Or
Right.
But
she made an impression.
Yeah, she did. There was a guy. Now, mind you, she's 22, 23 years old when she's over there.
Right. And nobody likes you when you're 23.
So, well, somebody did. Apparently, there was some. I don't know what his position was, but he was some court, mucky muck.
Right.
Who was 59 years old. His name was Sir Fitzroy Kelly.
Yeah.
He was courting her. He proposed to her.
Oh.
Queen Victoria's saying, marry the guy, stay here in England. That's how much she liked her.
Wow.
But Uncle said no.
Right.
Uncle said no to everybody.
Right.
So otherwise her life would have been very different. But so she
Interesting.
came home.
She had a lot of suitors. I
Yeah.
mean, not all of them gems, obviously.
No, she did have a lot of suitors.
Ah.
She also became friends with the Crown Prince Edward at the time. As a matter of fact, one of the last things she did in her life was when Queen Victoria eventually passed on and he became king. She was invited to his coronation.
Oh.
So she went over to England for his coronation.
Ooh.
So that ended up being a lifelong friendship.
Right. That's
So
nice.
very cool.
How many people get invited to the coronation?
Yeah, exactly. So she eventually came home, and then her sister died, and
Gotcha.
she's like, I'm done. I'm gonna, just
Gotcha.
stay away from the world.
Kind of broke her a little bit.
Yeah. Fortunately, she got over it
Yeah.
because very soon after that, her uncle became the president of the United States,
Right.
and he needed a hostess.
There was a job to do.
So when he is known as, for two things. Number one, he's known as one of the worst presidents ever. He was the last, it was not his fault. He was the last president before the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
So he was the one trying to hold it together as the country is falling apart.
He's kind of trying to like buy time
Yeah,
almost to a
he
certain
was-
extent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was trying to be He was trying to do compromise. He was trying to, keep everybody together and let's all be happy family. And it just wasn't
Gotcha.
working.
Yeah.
And so by the time he was out of office and Lincoln took over, 7 states had left the Union.
Okay.
So he's known as the president who, destroyed the country. But it wasn't his fault.
Right.
He's also known as possibly the first gay president.
Nice.
Because
He never married.
He never married. He had been engaged to a young lady named Anne Coleman, who committed suicide.
Aw.
They don't know if it was deliberate or by accident, but
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
And he said, "I will never know love again."
Ah.
However, he spent an awful lot of time with another, I believe it was congressman, named William Rufus Devane King. And they shared quarters, which was not unusual for congressmen
Right.
back then. But they shared a lot of affection for each other. They were known to be hanging out together all the time.
Gotcha. Were they together for a long time? Did they know each other for a long time?
Yeah, they maintained a friendship even after
Yeah.
they weren't like living together anymore.
Right.
They maintained that friendship for years. And
Nice.
William King actually got the nickname of Mrs. Buchanan.
Ah. Dun, 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 dun,
Maybe
dun.
there was
some
maybe there
hot
wasn't.
goss
Yeah.
there.
We'll never know.
Right. Correct.
Because after they were gone, Harriet Lane and William King's niece also mutually destroyed all their correspondence.
That sounds about right.
So that nobody would know.
Right.
So Harriet was very much trying to
protect the legacy.
Protect James Buchanan. She always was a strong supporter and pushed him to be known as a better president than people called him.
Well, especially if the tides were turning and you could see that his lasting leaving mark was you've destroyed the country. You kind of go into a tailspin of like, all right, hold on. How can I fix this?
Yeah.
Or how do I not add more flames to this fire of burn down my uncle's legacy? Yeah.
So, but she became the hostess. She showed up at the inauguration in this gown that was the latest Paris fashion. It was, and actually the story is that she went into the dress shop and the owner of the dress shop is like, I can't help her. So some sales clerk goes out there and says, do you have any idea who this is? This is the niece of the man who was just elected president.
This almost sounds like a Pretty Woman situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you work on commission?
Yeah, it really was kind of that thing. So this sales clerk goes and gets this dress and she's like, okay, but I just need you to adjust the neckline a little bit.
She wanted it lower or higher?
She wanted it lower.
Yeah, she did. That's a girl.
And the shopkeeper's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And she's like, yeah.
She's like, I'm a single lady.
I'm going to do this. And the next day, everybody's in all the dress shops lower my necklines. So all those Civil War pictures you see of the ladies with the girls were about to come out.
Right.
That's because of Harriet Lane.
She set a trend.
She set a trend.
She was bold and daring.
I do like me a V-neck. I'm just saying.
This was not just a V-neck.
This was a plunger?
Yeah, there's a picture. It's pretty low.
Oh, look at that with rufflies on it too.
Yeah.
Saucy.
So
I like it.
I've been Googling pictures of her.
Yeah.
Kind of seeing this charm. And
She's a pretty little thing.
Yeah.
She is.
Well, and the interesting thing was she immediately followed Jane Pierce, who was depressed and blamed her husband for her son's death.
Right. She was super depressed.
Yeah,
she
super
couldn't
depressed.
do anything as First Lady. Yeah. She
there
was
were
like,
no
no.
parties. There were no receptions.
Right.
It was like a mausoleum in the White House.
Yeah, true.
Well, Harriet
Lane,
she comes in here, 26 years old. It's a party.
Yeah.
And she hosts all these receptions and these elaborate. She started these concert nights.
Oh,
where they just set up a tent and anybody could come, like
an open mic night almost.
Well, no, the concert. I mean, the
was
performers
set,
were set, but anybody could just walk into the White House
or
nice.
president. It was whoever.
It was for whoever.
Cool.
Back in that time and clear up until World War I, you could just walk up to the door of the White House, knock on the door, and ask to see the president.
Right.
So she
before
just
there was a
opened up
fence
the door.
and sheep apparently.
Yeah. So she just opened it up, and it was parties and it was receptions.
Nice.
And the problem is, this whole slavery thing is going on, and
a war is trying to be fought.
And a war is they're trying not to fight a war.
Right.
So she's inviting people from both sides. So she's being very careful.
Yeah.
That people who had differing opinions about it never sat at the same table. She was a great hostess. She was known for her diplomacy and tact and
nice.
And
she sounds very smart and driven, like
she
choosing her school herself.
Yeah.
That she felt like would give her the best education.
Yeah.
No matter what religion it was. That's really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And her uncle was known for spoiling her. As a matter of fact, he got a couple letters from it, apparently, from the teachers saying, if you didn't do... But he did encourage her to follow her own way, and although he was protective, he's reading her mail, he's making sure that all these suitors are staying at a distance, but within those confines, he actually encouraged her to be her own person, and that was fairly unusual back then.
Yeah, it was. Oh, absolutely.
So the press called her the Democratic Queen at the inauguration.
Ooh.
They just loved her.
Interesting.
And it totally changed. with all this undercurrent of slavery arguments and everything, the parties were amazing.
Right. She was a positive light within all of it. Yeah.
After the first one where she canceled the liquor order and her uncle said, no, never do that again.
Never take away the rum.
So they loved her so much, the Navy named a steamship cutter after her. It was the USRMCS Harriet Lane. That became the presidential yacht.
Oh, okay.
It also was one of the first ships that was sent to Fort Sumter to protect them at the start of the Civil War.
Oh, look at that.
The Coast Guard continued that tradition. So in 1927, they commissioned a patrol ship. And then in 1980, when that was taken out of service, there was a cutter in 1984 that is still in service.
Gotcha. That's still called the Harriet Lane?
It's still called the Harriet Lane. So,
very nice.
So she did have causes, and that's why I asked that. Interesting. One of them was, in fact, prison reform.
No way.
So, yes.
Look at that.
So her 3 causes that she really spent time on were prison reform, hospital reform, and the plight of the American Indians. The prison reform, she worked with a congressman who was also an ex-suitor of hers. He's one, he had actually gone to London to propose to her.
Oh,
Went
wow.
all the way over there. She said no. He goes all the way back home, becomes a congressman, but then they worked together in later years.
Oh, nice. Okay.
She also worked with a different suitor who helped found the New York Institute for the Blind. Cool. And she worked with another friend of hers named Cornelia Van Ness Roosevelt.
Another Roosevelt.
Right. An earlier Roosevelt.
Right. They're all related.
Yeah. And helped found the Roosevelt Hospital in New York.
Oh, cool.
So she also helped the Chippewas. There was illegal liquor trade going on the reservation. And they're like, you got to get these people off our land. You know, they're getting all our guys drunk. It's just a mess.
Right.
And they were hiding out there to avoid taxes and stuff. She helped get that stopped. And so the Chippewas gave her the name Great Mother of the Indians.
Oh.
So very cool.
It's a very nice honor.
She was very quiet about being anti-slavery, because she was.
Right.
But she was very quiet about it. But one thing she did, first thing she does when she gets in there, she fires almost all of the White House staff because they were using hired out slaves. So the slaves would do the work and the owners were getting the pay.
Oh.
So she said, screw that. They're all gone.
Right. Not under my watch.
She hired a bunch of people, mostly of Irish and German descent.
Gotcha.
To go in and do the work and get paid themselves. Novel thought.
Look at that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she was doing a balancing act all the way through.
Yeah.
But there were 3 times where she got to shine. There were 3 famous visits during her time as First Lady. One of them was the first visit ever of Japanese representatives. They came over. They signed a treaty. It was the first treaty between U.S. and Japan.
Wow.
They came over, and she's hosting the reception for them and all this time there. Nice. They didn't speak a word of English.
Right.
And everybody talked about how cool she was with all this. Even though they didn't speak the same language, she just made them feel at home. It was really great.
Nice. Yeah.
The second one was, and I'm going to butcher this name, Miss I Love All the Multiple Names, Francois Ferdinand Philippe Louis Marie d'Orleans, known as the Prince de Joinville. He was one of the sons of King Louis Philippe. That was deposed and thrown out.
Okay.
And they're pretty sure that she was a big influence on James Buchanan, allowing him to attend the military academy at Annapolis. So
interesting.
Yeah. The third one was the cool one.
Yeah.
The very first visit of anybody from the royal family, Crown Prince Edward I was touring Canada. He came down and stayed at the White House. He didn't just visit, he stayed there.
Gotcha.
And James Buchanan,
because they had already been over there.
They'd already been over there. They were friends.
Gotcha.
James Buchanan and Harriet both slept in the hallway. to give them,
Oh, wow.
the good veterans so that they could stay.
Well, when the king's coming.
Oh, yeah. So
When the prince in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, they hung out, and President Polk or Mrs. Polk, one of them, had banned dancing in the White House.
Yes.
So they couldn't throw a ball in his honor.
Right. There's no footloose happening.
But the British did off-site, and so they were able to dance. She danced with the prince and had all kinds of fun. She also taught him to play kingpins, which is like early bowling.
Okay, I was gonna say, duckpin bowling sort of thing.
She not only taught him, she competed against him, and she won, which you didn't do. A woman not only didn't do that. He's the freaking Prince of England, and she's like, screw that, I'm gonna win.
Exactly.
So,
I love her.
Unfortunately, James Buchanan said, I'm not going to run for president a second time.
Right.
And that's good because Lincoln was awesome.
Right, exactly.
But, so they moved back to Wheatland, which is Buchanan's home in Virginia. Her uncle's finally retired, so now she can go out and have a life of her own.
Yeah.
So she gets married to Henry Johnston, who's a banker in Baltimore and extremely wealthy.
Gotcha. Okay.
They end up having two sons, James Buchanan Lane and Henry Elliott Johnston Jr. I find it interesting that the first one was named for James Buchanan, and the second one is Daddy Jr.
Right. Exactly. I'm not surprised. I mean, maybe you never know. Maybe Uncle was the introduction to. Maybe
I don't know
or
if he
approved,
was, but I do know that he officiated the wedding.
There you go. Okay,
so
he sounds like he's probably always up in the lives.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, in 1881, both the boys got rheumatic fever.
Oh no!
And James died. He was 14 years old. And Henry wasn't doing well, so they took him to Paris. He died a year later, so she lost both her sons.
Oh crap!
2 years later, her husband dies of pneumonia.
Oh,
so she's they've been married by this time 18 years,
right? Yeah,
and she's lost
again.
For the first time ever.
Yeah,
because she'd always been taken care of by her uncle.
Right.
He's also passed away, so she's got nobody.
Oh no!
So she mourned for a while.
Yeah.
And then she's like, screw this, I have a life to live. She went back to D.C. 2 years later, Grover Cleveland becomes the first Democratic president back in the White House since the Civil War. He gets married in office. His new wife says, I'm going to host a state dinner. Why don't you come in?
Gotcha.
So she shows up. It's like she never left. Everybody loves her.
Aww.
She goes in. She's wearing a gown. She's gone back to the story is she went back to the same dress shop. The shop clerk that helped her out before is now the owner of the shop and says, I've got just the thing for you. It's just from Paris. She says, great. I need you to do a little something with a neckline.
Exactly. I like it.
From then on until her death, there wasn't a fancy party that she wasn't invited to. And the society pages, there's quotes in this book, Harriet Lane, America's First Lady. There's quote after quote after quote of society pages saying, and the guests were this, and of course Harriet Lane Johnston.
Right. Nice.
She just
they loved her there.
They
She was a
loved
socialite
her forever.
Nice.
So even though they didn't like her uncle.
Right.
But
Happens.
they liked her. Yeah. So for her legacy, before her death, she worked with Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore to set up the Harriet Lane Home, which was the first pediatric medical center in the U.S.
Oh, that's very sweet.
And
especially after losing her kids and then also her siblings.
Yeah, and that's what did it. Her losing her sons was like, okay, we need to do something about these pediatric deaths and these kids. There's a handbook that's edited by the residents in that home, and it's called the Harriet Lane Handbook, a manual for pediatric house officers.
Oh,
it started back, I think, before she died, but it might have been afterwards. It's still being published. It's now in the 21st edition, still being edited by the residents as they get new information and everything. You can still buy it on Amazon.
Nice. That's a cute namesake and legacy.
but it's not her only legacy. When she died on July 3, 1903, she died of cancer.
Gotcha.
She had a 34-page will.
Oh, wow.
Very specific. She was I want to make sure everything's done my way.
Yeah.
She donated artwork in her will to a local gallery unless somebody sets up a national museum of art and then it'll go to there.
Okay.
Well, there wasn't a national museum of art, but the local gallery is like, we can't take care of this collection. It's too much for us. She had made a lot of specifications about the humidity and making sure everything is going to take
for preservation.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And they're like, we can't do all this work. It ends up, the argument about it ends up in the Supreme Court.
Oh.
Before they finally said, okay, you know what? The Smithsonian counts as a National Museum of Art.
Yeah.
So she was allowed to donate her art there. Some more people came because of that. More people donated their art. So she is credited as helping found the Smithsonian's National Gallery of Art.
Wow.
Nice.
That's where I was wondering if you were going. Is it the National Gallery?
Yeah.
That's
that is
so
because
cool.
of her.
Because of the artwork that she had and the rules that she had of how to take care of it and how it should be. Oh, that's very cool.
She also set aside money from her time in Europe, and she went back and visited a lot. She had fallen in love with the Vienna Boys Choir. She said, we need something like that here.
Yeah.
So she set up specified funds for the St. Albans School for choir boys. So they set that up because of her.
Nice.
And when they expanded that to the National Cathedral School for girls as well, they built a dormitory and called it the Lane Johnston Building, which they still use, not as a dormitory, but the building
building's
itself is
still there.
in use.
Aww.
So she also provided funds for a memorial for her uncle,
Right.
who everybody hates, right?
But still, it's her family. Yeah.
So they said, you've got 10 years to build this. If you don't build it in 10 years, the money, you don't get the money, and it goes to the Harriet Lane's home at Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
It becomes this huge fight in Congress. They keep trying to get it passed, and nope.
Right.
They finally get it passed 6 days before the deadline. They're like, this is ridiculous. It's a memorial. It's already paid for. It doesn't cost us anything.
It's a president. We do this.
Yeah. They almost lost it because of it.
Wow. Oh my goodness gracious.
So
bureaucracy.
Yeah. But she did all these amazing things, and she is pretty much the only hostess that was ever, he was the only Bachelor President. The only president who never married.
Right.
There were others who started out that way. They married in office.
Right.
He's the only one that fought that.
Yeah.
Was that because he was gay or because he was still pining. For his young bride? We'll never know.
I know, but it's interesting.
But it is interesting
on all sides of it.
Yeah. And a lot of her life was
her uncle's
legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
All the way,
it's amazing the
past
kind
when
of
she died.
impact she had.
Yeah.
Somebody so young.
Yeah. And is still having an impact today because a lot of what she started is still going on because of her.
Well, I think what's really interesting is Katie started with Michelle Obama. And I always think of Michelle Obama and the portrait gallery, the little Peyton,
girl.
Right, little girl
who saw at the gallery, and that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Harriet Lane. So we almost became full circle with the inspiration of the portrait gallery and Michelle Obama. And we never did talk about her arms, but the arms on Michelle Obama brought it back. Yeah. There we go.
2020 goals.
Exactly. I love Harriet Lane though. She's amazing.
That's so cool.
I didn't know that much about her in the beginning. Now I'm absolutely in love with her. So that's very cool.
She's a cute little smitten. I'm in deep smit.
Yeah. But a 34-page will. Oh my goodness.
She might have had a lot of stuff, or just she liked her shit a certain way. You know,
well,
I mean, she had an
feel
uncle that taught her how to do that.
My shit a certain way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and
most of my will is what Josh is not allowed to do after I die. That's like 90% of the will.
Well, and to be honest, she, her estate was because she inherited Wheatland from her uncle when he passed.
Right.
And the significant sum of money.
Yes.
So her estate was estimated at like $11.5 million.
Oh God, yeah, exactly. And she had no immediate family.
She had no family to pass it on to.
So it was divvying it out to a variety of different non-family members
things and personal items to friends. You know, this person gets this ring, this person gets this piece of jewelry, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But that's all I have on her. Yay!
And now I feel like I know something about a first lady. Yes! I know something about 3 more first ladies. Yeah. It's amazing.
Learning.
Exactly, right? So now when it's like when it's President's Day and it's like, oh, it's a day, I'll be like, wait, First Lady knowledge. Now I've got this.
First Lady Day.
That wraps it up for First Lady Month. Join us next Monday as we start a fantastic journey into Black History Month.
For show notes, links, and images from this week's show, visit galsguide.org. Want exclusive stuff like deleted bits and major bloopers? Become a Gals Guide patron today. Thanks for listening.